So let's work on the card. And therefore, of course, we can go to the card folder and add a card.js file for the card component. Now, the card component should render all the card items and, of course, display the total amount, and then also give us buttons for leaving the cart and for ordering. Though for this application, as shown in the preview, ordering won't really be a thing. Therefore, here we can add our card component function, expect props, and export it like this. And attached you find a card module.css file with some styling for this card. Hence, we can already import classes from card.module.css and then return the markup for the card. Now here, as I said, in this application, I want to render this card in a modal. Now we're going to build this modal in a second though. You can also try this on your own, also by using React portals, which is a feature we learned about. But before we are going to do it together, I want to finish the general card markup. So I'll have a div here, which will later be the modal component. And inside of that div, or inside of that modal then, I want to render my card items here. And then below that, a div with the total amount. And below that, a div with the actions for the card. So the close and the order button. Now for the card items, I again will add a little helper constant here, card items, where I want to map all card items to card item JSX elements. Now, at the moment, we of course have no card items here. So I will start with a dummy array, which I create inline here, which will hold a card item, let's say with an ID of C1, with a name of sushi, with an amount of 2 maybe, and the price of $12.99. And for the moment, that's it. And we then map this array of objects, which here is just an example. Later, we will get a real object managed through React context. But we will map that item here to a card item component, which we also don't have yet. So for the moment, I'll just output a list item where I output item.name. And then it's these card items which are rendered here. Card items, like this. And actually, I want to wrap this in an unordered list. So I will overall set card items equal to an unordered list. Then an opening curly brace around this JavaScript expression, closing curly brace, and then closing unordered list item. And I can also already add a class name on that unordered list and set this to classes card items written like this because of the dash. And that's the card items which are being output down there. Now, speaking of down there, in that first div here then, I want to have a span where I say total amount. And then below that, another span where the actual amount is being output. And for the moment, I'll just hardcode 35.62 here. But this is something which will, of course, be derived dynamically later. On that div, I will add a class name of classes.total. And then we got that other div with the buttons. This will receive a class name of classes.actions. And then in there, I want to have two buttons. The first button says close. And I will add a class name here of classes, and then it's button -- alt, and because of the dashes, again, I'm using this syntax of accessing that property. And then below that, I have another button where I say order, and this will receive a class name of classes.button. Now later, we will only render the order button when we have items in the cart, but since we're working with dummy data only at the moment, we don't need to worry about this right now. Okay, so that's the cart. Now, as I said, the cart should not be inside of that div though, but inside of a modal. So therefore, let's add such a modal wrapper, which renders this card as an overlay next. Of course, try it on your own first if you want to, and thereafter we're going to do that together.